not fit in the boxes. Stop it, quitting was never an option. Exhausted, this passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it, nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option. And you cannot stop it, nah, you cannot stop it.
Today's workshop, top 20 inventions by Black people. Let's get right into it, guys. Today we're talking about Juneteenth and the inventions of Black people. But first, I'd like to provide a little bit of context as to where Juneteenth comes from and how it happened. So this is Francis Scott Key. You might have heard his name before. This is the gentleman that wrote the song called the Star Spangled Banner, right? With the most famous song, you know? I'm pretty sure you know the song. It's world famous. It's sung before almost every sporting event, even in schools and so forth, and of course in the military. The Star Spangled Banner, which states, "No refuge could save the hireling and slave." This is the third verse that has been removed from this original. The original says in the third verse, "No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the Star-Spangled Banner in the triumph we wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave." I just can't associate with those ideals. And so this is the verse that they cut out and have everyone singing this song all over the country and you know, worshiping the flag and singing this song and not realizing that the original song has been slightly modified to take that out. And the reason why the slaves were being killed and slaughtered is because they took all the slaves and put them on the front lines to fight against the British. So not only were they slaves, but they also had to become battle warriors and fight for their lives with little or no training against the Brits to try to win and help America gain its own, independence, basically. The Star Spangled Banner was written by one of the richest men in America at the time, Francis Scott Key, who happened to be a poet, lawyer, and a slave owner. Celebrating violence against enslaved people is truly disturbing, and it's embedded within our national anthem. Whether people choose to sing it or not, it is still symbolic of the larger problem we have with racism in the United States. And so, as everyone who knows me knows that I am not a divide and conquer tactic person. I love all people. I love every single race, creed, color, gender. It doesn't matter to me, really. But at the same time, we have to understand that Black people in the world, globally, are still way behind other races of people. And primarily, it's because of little hidden things like this that keep us locked into this cymatic frequency programming. So when you have your kids singing this song, and the original consciousness behind this song was racist, then you have your kids singing this and worshiping this, because that's what it is when you start singing after these things. They're casting a spell on their own selves and don't even know it. And that's why this information needs to be brought forward, because words have power. Consciousness behind letters and words have power. And the original intent of this song was not what people really think it is. It is for the independence of a certain group of people and freedom of a certain group of people, but the other people to be slaughtered and tossed away as animals. If you look at the Declaration of Independence in 1776, it did not speak for all men. It only spoke for white men and white men that owned land. Slaves weren't valued as real human being, actually. And so that's why it was written the way it was, because we were never really considered to be a part of this. We were never considered human. So in their minds, it never really mattered. Out of 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence, 41 of them had slaves. Thomas Jefferson owned over 200 slaves. And thanks to DNA technology, he is now known to have fathered children by his slave, Sally Hemings. He's got a whole bloodline that he's fathered through his slave that he owned. Charles Blockson, a scholar, historian, and author of African American culture and history, gave some insight on the singing of the Declaration of Independence. Signing of the Declaration of Independence, it took place on the first floor of the Independence Hall as fugitive slave violations were being processed on the second floor. So at the same time that they were signing the Declaration of Independence, right above them in the same exact building, they were right below them, celebrating this right below them. I'm sorry, while they were celebrating the Declaration of Independence and signing of it, right below them downstairs, you had fugitive slaves on trial. Okay, in the same building. So that's pretty interesting. So these guys really obviously didn't care about slaves whatsoever. And the independence that they gained from going against Britain or England or whatever you want to call it, it was not. It didn't benefit blacks in any way, shape, or form. This whole process that I'm explaining to you where the Juneteenth comes from. So just stay with me. Just hang tight. So on July 4th, 1776, the Second Continental Congress unanimously adopted the Declaration of Independence, announcing colonies' separation from Great Britain, right? So boom, that's 1776, July the 4th. That's Independence Day. So you're going to see people running around, wearing the red, white, and blue and celebrating and having all this fun and everything else. Meanwhile, 87 years later, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, January 1st, 1863. As the nation approached its third year of bloody civil war, the proclamation declared that all persons held as slaves within the rebellious states are and henceforth shall be free. So 87 years later, you can see that we were still enslaved. And even after the proclamation, the Emancipation Proclamation, another 50 years go by where a lot of other slaves, still unknowns to them because of no internet, and the slave masters that got the news didn't tell their slaves, of course. 50 years more, on top of that, there were still slaves in certain areas, in certain cities and countries, certain cities and states in the country. Pretty interesting. So what is Juneteenth? Okay, what is Juneteenth? Well, this man right here, General Gordon Granger. This is a great book to get, by the way. The Savior of Chickamauga and the Man Behind Juneteenth by Robert C. Connor. General Gordon Granger. This man, to me, is an angel. Okay, I love this guy. The holiday commemorates a pivotal turning point in American history on June 19th. That's where we get Juneteenth from. You see the play on the words, Juneteenth, 1865. So even this is 1865. So that's 2 additional years after the Emancipation Proclamation. It took before it actually even got enforced, began to get enforced, right? And this general is the one to have done it. Okay, General Gordon Granger. So in 1865, Union General Gordon Granger, accompanied by approximately 1,800 federal troops, arrived in Galveston, Texas, formerly part of the Confederate States of America, setting the stage for what would become the most popular celebration of Black emancipation in the United States. He took, that's pretty interesting, right? Pretty interesting. So pretty interesting. So look at that. This guy has to come in. He has to get the feds in there involved. He's got to bring his own troops with him, 1,800 troops. And from there, he actually forces this law to be enacted and forces people to respect it and act on it by force, which is what was needed. Otherwise, it would still have carried on for who knows how long. It may have still been going on today. Okay, if somebody didn't step up and do what was right. So this guy, General Gordon Granger, never gets mentioned in history. He never gets talked about. I never heard about him when I was in school. I never heard about this guy in a lot of history books that I've read. But this guy is the person that's solely responsible for enforcing the law of freedom, of the Emancipation Proclamation. All right, General Gordon Granger. Now let's go into some of these amazing, inventions. Lewis Howard Latimer. All right, why were Black people inventing so well back then? Well, if you look at the ancestral line during the slave times, the Black people were doing the majority of the slave labor, all the work, right? While the slave master was getting paid for his ideas. He would say, I have an idea. We want to make clothes out of cotton. Okay, slaves, pick this cotton. Okay, slaves, sew this cotton together, make clothes out of it. Okay, slaves, take this cotton down to the warehouse so we can ship it out of here. and sell it to people all over the country. And then the slave master gets a check, and all he does is think. But the slave actually does all the hard labor, and all he gets is to breathe. That's it. He gets to breathe and barely gets fed right, and tortured and everything else. So we had to create inventions out of necessity because the backbreaking labor was getting to us. So we would come up with ideas to make things easier for us. Okay. And so that's why a lot of inventions were done. Now, what's interesting about that, unfortunately, the majority of those inventions in the early times during the slavery period were taken in ownership by the slave master. So they would proclaim it and get claim to it and get all the money from it, even though it came from a slave that they had owned. So Lewis Howard Latimer was an African-American inventor. He was born from 1848, died in 1928. So he was alive during the time of Nikola Tesla, right? So some people think Nikola Tesla was one of the greatest minds on earth, but he had a lot of great minds on earth at the same time with him, okay? This is one right here. So he was an African-American inventor, electrical pioneer, and son of fugitive slaves. With no access to formal education, Latimer taught himself mechanical drawing while in the Union Navy, and eventually became a chief draftsman, patent expert, and inventor. Latimer worked with three of the most celebrated scientific inventors in American history: Alexander Graham Bell, Hiram Maxim, and Thomas Edison. He played a critical role in the development of the telephone, significantly improved the production of carbon filament, and also made important contributions to the commercialization of the incandescent light bulb. Without this man, we wouldn't have the light bulbs that we have today, or probably would have taken a lot longer to create them, okay? He actually improved Thomas Edison's design. This is at the same time that you have Nikola Tesla and Thomas Edison and all these people walking the planet, all right? This guy was an absolute genius. No formal education, all self-taught, no YouTube, no Google, right? Just a mastermind, an absolute mastermind. This guy is responsible for the telephone system. It's incredible. This is an incredible inventor who has created multiple inventions, and I never heard about him until I started working on this workshop. Lisa Jalopter. Lisa Jalopter is an African-American entrepreneur, computer scientist, and inventor. Jalopter graduated from Brown University with a computer science degree and went on to work on numerous tech projects, including Hulu. She is best known for being the creator of animations that make up the GIFs and streaming technology. So every time you use all these animated GIFs, this is the person that invented the animated GIFs right here. Lisa did that, okay? And also streaming. Whenever you're streaming, you want to stream Forbidden Knowledge TV, you want to stream Hulu, you want to stream Netflix, you want to stream Amazon Prime Video or any other channel you have access to. Well, you got to thank Lisa for that because she's the one that actually invented it, okay? Today, Jalopter is the co-founder and CEO of TechQuitable, an organization aimed at making workplaces more equitable through technology. Okay, and so there's some more information about her organization right here. But incredible person. This is now more in modern times, Lisa Jalopter. Let's go back in time again. Thomas Jennings. Thomas Jennings was an inventor and businessman from New York. He was born in 1791 and lived until 1859. Okay, so that's pretty cool because that means that Nikola Tesla was a young man when this guy was, or young boy when this guy was alive still. During his life, Jennings served as a leader in the civil rights movement in New York City. He was already fighting for freedom back then. In 1821, fighting for equality. In 1821, Jennings became the first African American to be granted a patent. This is the first black person to ever get a patent. He invented a process called dry scouring, which was a method for cleaning clothes before dry cleaning was invented. This is the first guy who invented dry cleaning, which I use all the time. Despite being in the time of slavery, Jennings was a free man, so he was granted the patent after applying for it in 1820. Being one of the first to sign an oath declaring himself a citizen so he could receive his patent, Jennings set the stage for many black inventors who later obtained intellectual property and protection for their inventions. So this guy opened the door all the people that were getting all their inventions and patents robbed from them and stolen by the master, this is the guy that opened the door and made it happen, because he went through the door and got it done. He'd opened it and kept the door open for others to go through and also get it done. So hats off to Thomas Jennings. Okay, James E. West, James Edward Maceo West. This is the guy that's responsible for this microphone that I'm speaking into right now. Born in Prince Edward County, Virginia in 1931, West is an American inventor and acoustician. He holds over 250 foreign and U.S. patents for the production and design of microphones and techniques for creating polymer foil electrics. He is most well known for inventing the electric microphone, which has been instrumental in providing low-cost, high-performance audio capture for smartphone technology. This is incredible. I mean, this guy literally, it was born in 1931. His inventions that he created when he was an inventor during his invention era are still going today. Hugely, widely important person. Without this man here, I might not be using this microphone to talk to you. So that's James Edward West. All your the headphones that are programmed, that are inside of your what do you call it, earbuds, and your cell phone, earpieces, and lapel microphones for use on TV and everything else. All of that technology stems from this guy right here, James Edward Maceo West. Another guy is an amazing inventor, Frederick McKinley Jones. Frederick Jones was born in Cincinnati, Ohio in 1893. Again, he was born now at the time that Nikola Tesla was in his older age. He was an American inventor and was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame for inventing automatic refrigerator equipment. Jones received an engineering license from Minnesota and repaired machines in the Army during World War I. Jones eventually patented his portable refrigerator equipment invention, which is important because, you can't have food trucks without portable refrigerators, guys. This invention was used for long-haul trucks carrying food. There you go. So you can see that the origins of food trucks goes way back to this man right here. This invention was used for long-haul trucks carrying food. Eventually, Jones founded his own company, the U.S. Thermal Control Company, which helped to keep food and medicine cold during the Second World War. In 1991, Jones was posthumously awarded the National Medal of Technology by President George H.W. Bush. Okay, so this is the man responsible for your refrigerators on food trucks right now, Frederick McKinley Jones. Dr. Patricia Bath. Dr. Patricia Bath is a laser scientist and ophthalmologist. In 1986, Dr. Bath invented the laser phaco, a device used to assist with cataracts. In 1988, she patented this device, becoming the first African-American female doctor to receive a patent. So it took all the way to 1988 before a black woman can even get a patent. Okay, think about that. That's not too long ago. Heck, I was born in 1971, so we're talking about quite a bit of time, right? Between the emancipation and this, and inventions never stopped. I'm pretty sure a lot more women had invented things, but finally, she was able to get that patent. In addition to this accomplishment, Dr. Bath was also the first African-American female to complete her ophthalmology residency in 1973, and was the first female faculty member of the Department of Ophthalmology at UCLA. So congratulations to Dr. Patricia Bath. Garrett Morgan. This guy's inventions were uber important. He invented the gas mask. Garrett Morgan developed what would be called the safety hood after noticing how many firefighters were killed by smoke on the job. The hood, which went over the head, featured tubes connected to wet sponges that filtered out the smoke and provided fresh oxygen. So firefighters all over the world owe this man a debt of gratitude, because if without him, we wouldn't have the type of firefighting equipment that we have today that allows them to breathe in heavy smoke And it also trickled down into other areas with, toxins and everything else, this technology, this gas mask technology. And he also invented, of course, the traffic signal. Now, that was almost 100 years ago. This guy invents a traffic signal system, which is still being used to this current day, pretty much globally, except for some countries I've been to don't even have traffic lights, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, this is the man here behind the traffic light, all right? Garrett Morgan. So every time you come to a traffic light, just remember Garrett Morgan. That's the guy that invented that. Charles Richard Drew. All right, Charles Richard Drew. Blood bank. Blood banks are important, okay? I'll tell you a story about that after I read this. Charles Richard Drew became interested in researching the preservation of blood when he was studying at Columbia University. Drew discovered a method of separating red blood cells from plasma and then storing the two components separately. This new process allowed blood to be stored more than a week, which was the maximum at the time. Drew documented these findings in a paper that led to the first blood bank. Now, why are blood banks important? Of course, well, if you get into a car accident or a situation or mortally wounded and you're losing a lot of blood, you would need to get a blood donor, right? So these blood banks supply a lot of blood to hospitals, and it gives you the capability of potentially saving your life with someone else's blood. In my case, it's extremely incredible that I have something called Rh negative blood, which is extremely rare. Only 20% of the people on earth have my blood type. And so because of this, if I get into a situation where I'm mortally wounded or I'm losing a lot of blood, it's highly likely that if I can't get a transfusion that matches my blood type, I'm going to die. What I do is, as I donate blood to my local blood bank, I donate blood to myself. I actually go down to the blood bank every few months and donate my own blood to myself. You have to keep going because blood doesn't last forever. But you go down there and you donate your own blood so that if something happens to me when I'm within this area, this region, they can get my own blood to me and save my life, because it's highly unlikely they will find a match for my blood. The chances are low. It can happen, but it's very, very low. I witnessed my mom almost die in the 1980s, couldn't get a blood transfusion. After giving birth to my youngest brother, she started internal bleeding, hemorrhaging, and they couldn't stop it. She needed a transfusion, and she almost didn't make it. And she ended up staying in the hospital, consequently, about 2 or 3 months after that incident. Came home finally, but was still very, very weak. But again, very important. She was also Rh negative, and that's why they had such a hard time getting her blood. So blood banks are hugely important. And if you are Rh negative, make sure you donate blood to yourself. Find your local plasma bank and donate blood, and they'll store it for you. There's a small fee, but it's worth it in case you need it. Okay, George T. Sampson. All right. This guy invented the clothes dryer. So every time you get your clothes nice and fluffy out of the dryer, this is the man you got to clap your hands for and thank this guy, George T. Sampson. George T. Sampson created the clothes dryer in 1892. George T. Sampson was an African-American inventor, best known for inventing the automatic clothes dryer 1892 and receiving a patent for it in 1893. He also invented a propeller for a sled. So this guy invented multiple things. Okay. Sampson's personal life, such as his childhood and education, is unknown. Even his birth date and location were disputed. Sampson was living in Dayton, Ohio, and had invented and patented a sled propeller. When we first see him in the public light, it was in 1885. It was a pedal-powered device that made snow travel easier. So he invented the snowmobile. So this guy invented the dryer to dry your clothes. Before, people were just hanging them outside on a clothes hanger. Now, when I was growing up, we still hung them out on the clothes hanger because we couldn't even afford a dryer, and we could only afford to go to the laundromat in the city like once a month. But thankfully, this guy invented this object because it's helped a lot. It's helped progress on Earth, because without the clothing dryer, it would be pretty hard to do things like competitive sports and things like that on the fly. In other words, when I used to coach teams, and I would take a team out of town, and we got 3 or 4 games the next day in a tournament, being able to wash those clothes and dry those clothes very rapidly was very important. We didn't have time to hang them on the line and let them dry all day. So this invention is so vital to life right now. So thank you, George T. Sampson. And of course, the snowmobile which is being used to this current day in areas that have a lot of snow. Mary Van Britten Brown, okay? Mary Van Britten Brown. African-American nurse Mary Van Britten Brown devised an early security unit for her own home. So that's incredible. She created the first alarm system, guys. She and her husband took out a patent for the system in the same year, and they were awarded the patent 3 years later in 1969. The home security system commonly used today took various elements from her design. So this is the person responsible for ADT and all these home security systems that are out there, right? This is the woman right here, Mary Van Britten Brown. So every time you set your alarm on your home, remember Mary Van Britten Brown was the one responsible for you to even be able to have an alarm system on your house, all right, or your apartment. So shout out to Mary Van Britten Brown. Great job and congratulations. All right, Mark Dean. This man invented the color IBM PC monitor, and he also invented the gigahertz chip. If you remember when computers first came out, we were dealing with megabytes. You know, I remember my first computer, I think it was 1 gigabyte. It was just a small number. This man here is responsible for helping us upgrade that to the next level. And of course, who would want to be operating off of black and white monitors? So Mark Dean, you can thank him for inventing the color monitor, and without his invention, we'd still be typing in the colorless interweb. So thanks again, Mark Dean, for doing this. This is the man that's responsible for the colors that you're looking at right now on this exact picture or image while you're watching this workshop. So that and the gigahertz chip, amazing. Another incredible invention, the lawnmower. So we had John Albert Burr. Some people I was able to find a lot more about their previous life or history. On some it was a little bit less. But I thought this was a very crucial invention because, you know, every 2 weeks the yard man comes to my house to cut my grass, and I see them cutting the whole neighborhood. And when I was a kid, I used to go around with a lawnmower and cut grass to make extra money in the summer. So because of this man right here, John Albert Burr, I was able to make extra money for myself in the summer. I actually had 3 lawnmowers, and I had my brother and a neighbor that we had, a friend of ours, and I was the boss man, and we went around cutting yards for money in the summer, right? I invested into the lawnmowers and got the lawnmowers, and we made some money. But thanks to this guy, we were able to do that. John Albert Burr, he fully made over the lawnmower. So he actually made it over, bringing better traction, rotary blades, and allowed cutting closer to the buildings. And so I actually remember this specific exact design that he's showing right here, that is being showed in this picture. This design, I used to see my neighbor using this back in the 70s. So in the 70s, I had a neighbor, really nice guy. When I used to live in, this is the early 70s, I was living in New York and Queens. And I'd walk down the street and I'd see this gentleman outside. He'd be cutting his grass. He'd always say hi to me with this exact design of a lawnmower. And, you know, in New York, the grass is not the same as the grass in Florida. The grass is a lot thinner. It's more like, it's almost like golf green. I don't know what to call it, but I don't know the exact, name for the grass, but the grass in Florida that we have is so thick. I don't know if this would work that well, but the grass definitely up north, this was a charm for it. So it was pretty easy to use, but it's pretty interesting because this design is the same exact thing. All you had to do is push it and it would cut the grass for you. Now, it wouldn't suck up the grass and put it in a bag or nothing like that. That came much later. But at least you can get your grass cut, and then you'd rake up the piles of loose grass and put it in a plastic bag and dump it. You want to leave the loose grass on your yard because it would turn brown. Hey, anybody here use the toilet? Anybody sit down on the toilet? The modern toilet, Thomas Elkins. Thomas Elkins. Thank Thomas Elkins for your porcelain throne. Without Elkins, your bathroom breaks certainly wouldn't be as comfortable. An inventor, abolitionist, and trained medical professional, Dr. Thomas Elkins played a significant role in supporting the Underground Railroad in Albany, New York, during the 1840s and 1850s. He also made an important contribution to the development of refrigeration techniques and patented several inventions for other household furniture items during the later part of his life. So this guy invented the toilet bowl and many other things. Improved refrigeration, probably freezers as well. But this guy is an amazing guy because, listen, You got to have a toilet. Nobody wants to go outside and dig a hole and squat, okay? Or go to the outdoor latrine, which is a hole in some wood, and just squat over it and all of that. So this guy right here is responsible for the modern toilet. You can sit on, you can actually be comfortable somewhat, flush it and everything else, which is still being used obviously to this very day. So thanks to Thomas Elkins. Refrigerated trucks. Okay, Frederick McKinley Jones in 1940. If your refrigerator has any produce from your local grocery store, then you can credit African-American inventor Frederick McKinley Jones. Jones took out more than 60 patents throughout his life. That's 60 inventions, guys. 60 patents. Incredible. Including a patent for roof-mounted cooling systems that's used to refrigerate goods on trucks during extended transportation in the mid-1930s. He received a patent for his invention in 1940 and co-founded the U.S. Thermal Control Company, later known as Thermo King. You might have heard of it. The company was critical during World War II, helping to preserve blood, food, and supplies during the war. Okay? Frederick McKinley. This guy is responsible for those big trucks that drive down the road that have all the refrigerated goods that need to be taken to your grocery store's freezer department and frozen food department. It's because of this man here. Without him, we wouldn't have any cold butter on the shelves and things like that, because it wouldn't be able to get there in time without defrosting and melting. Gladys West. Gladys West worked on complex calculations and programmed computers at a United States naval facility beginning in 1956. She led teams on groundbreaking satellite projects, monitoring the world's oceans and creating a detailed model of the Earth's surface. West's work led to the creation of GPS. Let me read this again to you for all the people who believe the Earth is flat and all this dome stuff and all these crazy things. You're slapping our ancestors in the face when you come up with these crazy concepts that don't exist. Let me read this to you one more time, and make sure you share this with somebody who doesn't understand what's going on here. Gladys West worked on complex calculations. It says complex. It didn't say somebody who watched YouTube videos and got an idea from somebody on YouTube. It says complex calculations. This lady was a human computer and programmed computers. She programmed computers at a United States naval facility beginning in 1956. She led teams on groundbreaking satellite projects. Yes, satellites are real. Yes, satellites really do exist, guys. There is a real GPS system, and they're run by satellites. Right now, I have a satellite dish in my backyard. It's called Starlink. It's looking up at space, and it's tracking satellites overhead, providing me with high-speed access so I can talk to you right now. Okay? It's because of this woman. Incredible. Groundbreaking satellite projects monitoring the world's oceans and creating a detailed model of the Earth's surface. Incredible. This woman is incredible. Reminds me of the women at NASA in the early days. They were called hidden figures. I'm going to do a whole show on hidden figures. These women were computers. Computers didn't exist at the time. They called these black women computers. That the name was originally for black women, computers. Computers were not a machine at that time. The machine didn't even exist yet. And so they would call them computers, and they all would work in these offices, and they would calculate trajectories, splashdown areas, orbital periods, all this stuff, all with their mind, with their brains, and they were called computers before computers existed. I'm going to do a whole show on it. Hidden figures. Here's another amazing hidden figure, George Carruthers. Scientist George Carruthers, who's standing there on the right. You can see him standing next to his device right here. Gold-plated ultraviolet camera spectrograph. Carruthers, pictured with co-worker William Conway, developed the telescope, the first moon-based observatory for the Apollo 16 mission in 1972. So when I was a little kid, this guy had already developed a moon-based observatory for the Apollo 16 mission, which was taken to the moon and left there, I believe. But anyway, this is the guy. scientist George Carruthers. All right, pretty interesting. This guy is amazing. He's an amazing inventor, amazing mind. This guy's an absolute genius, an absolute genius. So when you come up with these ideas about we didn't do this and we didn't do that, these are the people that you're slapping in the face and saying, yeah, they didn't really invent nothing. They don't know what they're talking about. And then you think your IQ is higher than these people. Not even close. Jesse Eugene Russell. Each time you pick up your smartphone, okay, you pick up your smartphone, think of Jesse Russell. Over decades of work in the telecommunications field, Russell played a large part in getting cell phone communications to where they are today, with numerous patents in the field for innovations like wireless communication, base station, and mobile data telephones. Jesse Eugene Russell is an American inventor. He was trained as an electrical engineer at Tennessee State University and Stanford University, and worked in the field of wireless communication for over 20 years, and he's the person responsible for your smartphones. Without this man, we wouldn't have smartphones. We'd still be using the Motorola flip phone or the old Nokia. This is the man responsible for your ability to have a supercomputer in your hand. Okay, this is the guy right here, Jesse Eugene Russell. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you learned something from this. If you can go back and watch it over and over again. Just some of the greater inventors that I was researching in the last few months that I thought the world should know about. All right. Anyway, peace and love from Forbidden Knowledge. Love you guys, and I'll catch y'all later.
Boxes, I cannot fit in the boxes. Stop it. Quitting was never an option. Exhausted. This passion is never exhausted. And you cannot stop it. Nah, you cannot stop it. Quitting was never an option.